Welcome everybody to Loquitur Gaming. I'm going to make a real quick video today, hopefully a real quick video today, about upcoming Kickstarter for 7th Citadel by Serious Poulp. I'm going to real briefly talk about my history with their previous game 7th Continent, and then I'm going to go through some of their BGG posts about new things for the upcoming game and some of the new mechanisms and things, and talk about why I think some of these things are cool and why it's probably going to be an instant day one back for me. So I don't want this to turn into a very long video, so I'm just going to dive right in here and talk a little bit about 7th Continent. So 7th Continent has kind of a near and dear place in the hobby for me because it was the first game that I actually purchased via Kickstarter. It wasn't the first Kickstarter that I did. The first Kickstarter that I did was actually Gaming Mat, but 7th Continent was the first actual game that I bought on Kickstarter. And in addition to that, when I switch over to the web browser view here in just a minute, I'll show you when I built this game table that I use. I actually built this, and 7th Continent was the first game that was played on this new table. So 7th Continent has a couple of firsts for me in the hobby. So like I said before, it really has kind of a little near and dear place for me in the hobby. And I do really enjoy the game. I think it's fun. The exploration is fun. I'm actually doing a playthrough of it on the channel right now, doing Voracious Goddess. I won't give any spoilers on how we're doing on that, but it is 7th Continent, and I'm playing with all the expansions. So now I'm going to switch over, throw a cut in here, and get onto the web so we can look at some of the updates that they're posting for 7th Citadel. All right, so what I just wanted to show real quick here was, this is on BGG. This is a posting I made a little while ago of the table build that I did. I'll put a link in the description, but I have a picture. I put Terraforming Mars board there just to show a size comparison, but then this is the actual first game played on the table was 7th Continent. All right, so they have been posting these updates on BGG about 7th Citadel, and this is the first one. You can see it's coming out September 22nd. I did take some notes about some things that caught my eye on these. You can read the story on here, go on to their posting. You know, it's not the same as 7th Continent, not the same universe, not the same world, anything. It's something completely new, and they point out it's not a sequel to 7th Continent, it's a new game. So there's these worms that are causing a bunch of stuff to collapse, so they made these crazy plants to take care of the worms, and I think now the plants are also getting out of control. And you're some kind of like slave gardener who has to take care of the plants, and then all kinds of bad things happen. So I think something that's kind of cool that you can see here is there's male and female versions of each character, I think. And then there's a miniature, it looks like, for each of the two. Even though it's the same character, you'll have a male and a female version of the miniature there as well. In addition to that, something that I know I had heard about 7th Continent was each character just got the cards to add to the action deck, and there wasn't like any individual things for them in the game. Just a thing that I heard as a comment about the game. I'm fine with 7th Continent, but here they're adding personal quests. So a character is going to have their own personal quest to do during the game as well. So that's going to add some replayability when you're looking at the different quests for the different characters. And then the second update, they talk about how you're going to have a base. The Citadel's kind of your base. There's more story in here and less survival than in 7th Continent. In 7th Continent, the whole game was about survival. So I think it's cool that they didn't just, oh, let's just do another survival game. When the setting changes and things about the game are different, survival is not really a thing. You know, there's plenty of food, I think is one of the comments that they had in here. And then there's a new thing, a life counter. So there's going to be things that tick down your life. And when you get down to 0 life, you become unconscious. And just like in 7th Continent, this game has a save mechanism. So there's also the storybook. You might have to read some passages from the storybook, and then you get to choose which way you want to answer, and then that leads you to another story chapter. Then the next one that they posted for chapter 3 talks about some of the ability things and how the action deck works. It's a little bit different than in 7th Continent, where you had one big action deck. Here, each character is going to have their own action deck with that character's 15 skills, and then you're going to add 5 skills from another deck. It's something you can see on the action cards here. They have these symbols. I think they call them class icons. They're kind of like the 7s from 7th Continent, I think, because there are things that will trigger off of how many of those icons come up when you're doing the result step. That's just my understanding from reading this. I'm sure we'll see more. Hopefully we'll see a rule book during the campaign, and maybe some gameplay videos showing off this class icon functionality or mechanisms. What else did I want to talk about? They're going to talk about advanced skills and changing your decks in another update here. So let's go to this next one. So here it shows the list of actions. There's some new ones on here that weren't in 7th Continent. Like Convince, I don't think was in 7th Continent. And then I like this search icon. It's like a little drawer you can search in. So actions, the card looks pretty similar. There's flavor text, the action symbol, how many cards it's going to cost, the difficulty of it, and then the success and failure consequences. And somewhere in here they do talk about how there is no more automatically get a skill card. You have to actually have a consequence that tells you can add a new skill card to your hand. But then this is something I want to talk about for a little bit. Compound actions. This was a pretty big thing that they're adding for 7th Citadel. So if I understand this correctly, if you take a peek at this weird monster with like a door hanging out the side of its face or something, and these weird buggy eyes. So for me, what it looks like is this is a way for a card and for actions to have progress made on more than one turn and to stick around for more than one turn. So when you first get the card, you put a die down here and it matches, the stars match however many stars it says on the row. And if you get successes, you tick this down until it reaches 0. So say on one turn I only got 1 success. My understanding is that this star on the die would then go to 2. You didn't pass the action, so you have to suffer the failure consequence. But when you go back to do this action again, now you only need to get 2 successes for it to be successful. And then once it reaches 0 on that first row, you move the die down to the second row, and then that one's going to start at 4, and you have to take that one down to 0 stars. And then that's when you will finally finish the action. So it's a potentially multi-turn, multi-action thing that you have to do. Suffering the failure consequences every time you don't actually get that row down to 0. So that's just my understanding of how these compound actions are going to work. And I hope we see more on this during the campaign. There's another interesting thing. If you see this red chain icon, so if I remember correctly, that means that you can only use however many cards I think it says is the minimum. So here, since this is a 1, you'd only get to use 1 card to apply 1 card's worth of successes. I could choose to draw, say, 3 cards, but I only get to pick 1 and apply that 1 card's stars, is I think what that red link icon means there. So that's compound actions. That's pretty cool. It's a very interesting new mechanism added for 7th Citadel. All right, so then this 5th one here, they talk more about how skill cards work. So Gone is crafting in this vein that it was in 7th Continent, and Gone is the number of items that you can have with the die and the durability and stuff. So here now, items have keywords, like here this piece of armor has one armor keyword, and you can never have more than 3 copies of the same keyword in your belongings. So they make a point of having an example here of if you have a piece of armor that has armor, cumbersome, that one card is taking up 2 of your armor keywords. So that's interesting and cool, new thing. Using cards, you can only use one card with one keyword, so you can't use like 2 cards that have the armor keyword on them, or you can't use 2 cards that have the keyword weapon on them. And then they talk about negative state cards here. You can see they did reuse the red lock symbol, but for here, when they're talking about these kind of cards, it means that it's not something that you can just discard at will. You have to get rid of it in the way that you're instructed to get rid of it. Then another cool thing, they talk about treasures, and I love this card that they chose as the example. The Gambler's Boon. It's like a weird looking hairy carrot with a card, like a gambler's card in it. And then they say, so what's the point of these cards? Well, you'll have to find out during the game, basically. They're going to have things that get revealed during the game that will tell you and show you how to use treasure cards. And then the most recent update, it's not the last update, there's going to be one more, I believe, before the Kickstarter actually launches, is about another advancement system. So it's the Destiny page. And if you've ever played, I think it's Final Fantasy X, they even mentioned that it was inspired by that game. They don't mention that game specifically, they mention characters from that game in the update here. You'll tick off circles in this thing to get different advancements. And in this same update, they also talk about getting new skills, where there's 2 different types of skill cards. There's advanced skills and reflex skills. So advanced skills can get added to your deck, but they will have to replace a card that's already in your deck. So it's not like increasing the size of your deck. So that's cool. You have to make some potentially interesting decisions on what cards you're going to get rid of in order to put the new advanced skill card back in there. And then there's reflex skills. So reflex skills are a little bit different. They actually do add to your deck. So they're not replacing a card that's already in your deck. And then they talk about things that you might have to have a certain proficiency level to do, or to maybe not suffer a negative consequence or something like that. And you'll be tracking that on another tracking sheet. And then they mentioned down here about some other, not really resources, but other things you need to track: influence, knowledge, defense, and production. So some gauges you'll have to keep track of, and things that will go up and down throughout the game. They have a range of -10 to 20. Then they're going to talk about building in the last update. So I know that was quick. There's lots of more detailed information. I just wanted to go over them real brief. I don't want this to be a super long video, but I encourage you to go to BGG and read Serious Poulp's updates. Watch for the last one to come out. Like I said, I just wanted to make this video because I'm actually really excited about 7th Citadel, and just to talk about some things that I think are cool with these updates, some things that stood out to me when I read them. So if you are going to check this out, if you like 7th Continent, like 7th Citadel, leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to as far as maybe seeing during the campaign, when the game actually comes out, things that you like about changes that they're making according to these updates, and anything that you're looking forward to maybe that they keep from 7th Continent. All right, I'm going to cut this one off there. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, leave me any comments down below about this particular game and 7th Continent. See you next time.